Welcome to By Your Side, Divorce Law and Support.
Hello and welcome to By Your Side, Divorce Law and Support with Patricia Sokolich, a longtime family law attorney and dedicated advocate for women navigating divorce and domestic challenges. With nearly 30 years of experience representing women in court, Pat now offers private divorce coaching to help clients plan, process, and protect themselves before, during, and after divorce without the pressure of hiring an attorney. I'm Evan Mack, and in this episode, we'll explain what a divorce coach does, who it helps, and why it might be the best first step when you're facing very big decisions. Welcome, Ms. Patricia.
Okay, a divorce coach is a relatively new term. There's always new jargon in the legal world, but this is an area that I feel particularly is important to women, perhaps much so more than men. But for women, it's important to know as much as you can about the process before looking for a lawyer or hiring a lawyer. In addition, a divorce coach is going to answer all what you may consider your dumb questions. And hopefully, it's going to prevent you from going to your best friend and more importantly, going to the internet for your answers. This is where most people, I can tell you after 30 years, most people go first to the internet to figure out how they should get a divorce and how they should find their lawyer. Now, the internet is a vast font of information, but it is not the best source of information for your particular case. So, as a coach, I would like to give you the information that you need to make you feel safe and comfortable and assured going forward.
So, Pat, what made you decide to transition from the courtroom representation to divorce coaching?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting question. I've been doing matrimonial law and family law for probably over 30 years. And as I started to slow my practice down and become what I consider semi-retired, I still want to be active and I still like helping people. I still care mostly about, I hate to say it, mostly about women going into this minefield called divorce. And I thought that if I could give them any sense of self-confidence or feel more secure going forward in a divorce, I thought that might be something that would be helpful and I would like to be part of the process.
So, Ms. Pat, what does a divorce coach do? And maybe what are the things that they don't do? What are like kind of the misconceptions that people don't really understand?
A divorce coach, as I said, there's no particular definition for it, but the way I view it and what I would be offering to a client is this. Uh, Over the years, many women have come to me with great fear and trepidation about the divorce process, how you do it, how you start it, what to know, what not to know. And as I said, people tend to ask their friends. And the reason that's such a bad idea is because every divorce is different. The law stays the same. But what people don't necessarily understand is that your friend may have gotten a divorce settlement. A settlement is based loosely on what the law states, but it's also a matter of what the parties agree to. So within the scope of the law, parties can agree to any terms that they want. So when your friend says, "Oh, I got the house, I got the car, I got the yacht," and you say, "Oh my goodness, I didn't get this," it's because different things are traded off. Different marriages have different assets, and so things are balanced and traded off as the parties want them. So going to a friend and asking what she got in her divorce is a very bad idea. I, on the other hand, what I'd like to do is to take your situation, your particular situation,
Right.
and go through it with you and tell you what I think would be the best way for you to approach the divorce, what is real and what is not going to happen. Uh, one thing that I find very important is that people come into an attorney with expectations and they decide this is what they want and this is what you have to get for them. And in most cases it's reasonable and it works out. But in many cases, it's just not happening. And I will tell you that not many, but I have turned down women who have come to me for divorces because their expectations were so out of whack with reality that I knew I could not provide that. It wasn't going to happen. And so they go off and they find another attorney who says, "Oh, yeah, I can do that for you." But,
Mm.
you know, I was never at a loss for clients. So I just never took on people who I felt I couldn't really do a service for. And a divorce coach is going to help give you the answers that you need before you even get to a lawyer.
So, Miss Patty, is part of your, job, do you kind of talk people off the ledge, calm people down when they're going through something that's so, tumultuous and something that's so emotional? Is part of your coaching kind of, putting out a few fires?
That's an interesting question. I'll tell you this. I'm not a therapist. I am not a licensed therapist, but I am an extremely good listener. Um, I have a great deal of empathy after doing this for mostly women. I've divorced a lot of men, but mostly women. I have a lot of empathy and I'm a good listener, but that does not mean that I am your therapist and I can't
Mhm.
help you help yourself. So there are times when I tell them, quite frankly, you may want to speak to a professional and get support from them. That's their job to offer. But I certainly am a good listener, and I understand after all these years the many, many issues and problems women face going into divorce. The the main one, there's always fear. There's
Mhm.
always fear for women. There's always a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety in attempting, even trying to move forward. And I'll tell you, the main issues are always, am I going to lose my children?
Yeah.
Am I going to lose my home? How am I going to support myself? These are the three topics that are always at the top of a woman's divorce problem list. And these are some of the things where I can calm some of the fears, tell you what your options are. I can never predict, even if you were my divorce client, I can never predict what's going to happen in the end.
Mhm.
And at another time, we'll go into issues of whether or not it's worth it to go forward with a trial. But right now, I'll tell you that the most important thing is to give you some sense of control. That's what I would like to do. I'd like to see women going forward in divorce with some sense of control and some self confidence that they feel, "Oh, this is going to be okay. I can do this. I can survive it, and my children will be okay." And that's what I'm hoping as a divorce coach. I'm going to be able to spend the time supporting that edge of the divorce process as opposed to the legal.
Ever any situation where coaching makes more sense than hiring an attorney? Is that ever a scenario you think?
Well, no. The difference is I'm not going to be filing for divorce and moving forward with negotiations in order to settle a divorce. My job is more prepping the person so that
Mhm.
they can go forward finding a lawyer with more um, knowledge, with more understanding of what that lawyer is supposed to do for you, what they can and can't do for you, and more importantly, that you find somebody that you feel comfortable with. Years ago, I had a woman come to me and she was literally in tears. And she said to me, "Oh, I was referred to you by someone else." And I said, "Oh, okay." She sat down, we were talking. And meanwhile, she had already hired a lawyer. He was what we call a very high powered, aggressive attorney. But as a male, he had little or no understanding or no time to listen to this woman. So every time she tried to ask him something, he would, give her a very curt answer, blow her off, and
Mhm.
sometimes she was reduced to tears because he was basically just insulting and calling her like almost stupid for having these concerns or questions or whatever. So she said to me, "I can't do this. I can't do this." Um, he was a very good lawyer. I happen to know him. But there's something missing. You have a very aggressive male lawyer, they don't have time. They don't want to spend time listening to what the client says is the problem. Yeah, clients cry. They do it all the time. Big
Yeah.
boxes of tissues, always in a divorce lawyer. Big boxes of tissues.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, I happen to have that ability and the empathy to listen. And again, as I said, I can't solve the problems and I can't get you divorced. But what I can make you do is to feel more confident approaching the situation and moving forward through it.
So Pat, speaking about that, like what, they're not ready to hire a lawyer. They're overwhelmed by the idea of doing so. Can your coaching kind of provide a helpful first step for them to kind of get them to that point?
I would say probably like 60% of the women that I've worked with in divorces have been in a marriage where I call it an imbalance of power,
Mm,
meaning that the wife may work, but she may not be controlling the finances. She may be a homemaker, she may have a part-time job or even a full-time job, but she's in charge of the children, she's in charge of the home, and the husband is in charge of all the financial aspects of the marriage. She may get to pay the bills out of the joint checking, but he's handling the investments, he's handling funneling money into a savings or wherever. And with all the excitement and all of the responsibilities of homeowner, raising your children, part-time job, paying the bills, doing the shopping, you women don't pay attention to, does he have a 401? Does he have a pension? Uh, what's going to happen when we retire? Or yeah, if we get divorced, what's going to happen to me financially? Everything may be in his name. Women don't understand how that could happen. As an attorney, I don't understand how it could happen, but it happens all the time. So these are the issues where I can bring some sense of calmness and go through them. There's also what I call the pre-divorce prep period. And many times, by the time a client comes to me, it's already too late to perhaps do this kind of work. But as a divorce coach, I would like clients to know that there is what we call a period where you should be preparing for the divorce. And by that, I mean not only, intellectually or emotionally, but financially. You have to take a very close look at A, how much money comes into this house? How much does he make? How much do I make? And where does this money go? In other words, every couple has a different way of paying bills, combining their money, keeping it separate, whatever. There are things that we can do ahead of time so that you can go in feeling more secure. There are ways of you getting copies of all the income tax, just getting copies of all the financial statements, whether or not they're in your name or his, um, getting everything together. And so when you go to your attorney, you can present them with, these are the financial, issues, problems that we have. This is what our life looks like financially. That's a huge, huge piece of the divorce. And it's the one where women always come up short because they don't always have the information. And by the time someone files for divorce, usually the husband, all of a sudden, all of that information has disappeared from the home. All of a
mm,
sudden, it's gone. Income
mm.
tax statements, his pay stubs, you can't find anything. So this is part of what I call the prep period that a divorce coach can really help you get organized. There's one other issue in this area that I just like to address, and that is that's the marriage where there's not only an imbalance of power financially, but there is what I would call a level of domestic control. Control, okay? And so the woman is not in a position where she's able to make decisions without first running them by him.
Right.
Not really an independent person. And therefore, it makes it very difficult for her to even consider looking for a lawyer or filing for divorce. There are some cases where the woman's just literally afraid because he is perhaps violent. There are things that you can do to be protected and protect your children before and during a divorce. But there's a there's just so much information that I can help an individual with before they even get to a lawyer. And I know I'm rambling, but lastly, I just want to say that getting the right lawyer is just like 90% of the battle of a successful divorce. Because as I mentioned with that client earlier, someone said to her, "Oh, you need a what we call a heavy hitter. You need a really aggressive guy." She got one, and she paid a ton of money for him. But
Mm,
then she couldn't move with it. He couldn't help her because she couldn't even get on the phone with him because she was afraid. She was literally afraid to talk to him.
mm.
So getting the right fit is also important.
So, Miss Pat, you spent your career standing up for women, standing up for children, especially survivors of abuse. How does that experience shape the way you support your clients at this moment in time?
Yes. Well, um, I've always had a part of my practice that was involved with domestic violence clients. And I edited a book a long time ago on domestic violence. I did a lot of public speaking in the area and supported a lot of the communities. Uh, this is a very, very sad, difficult part of the divorce process. But again, you have to find the right attorney that's going to help you and support you. And women that are in abusive situations, um, they are so fragile and they're so unable to take care of themselves that they need someone who's there to support them and to be able to guide them through this, to really help them get through it because it's a very difficult, very, very difficult process for anyone who's in an abusive situation. They're afraid of the husband. They're afraid he's going to take their children and run. They're afraid they won't have any money because he takes all the money. So these are things that I've worked with for many years, and I certainly feel that I can be very helpful to anyone. This is something you need to really talk to someone about before you get a lawyer. So you go in more emotionally stable and emotionally prepared of how you're going to do this.
So, Miss Pat, what do you want women to know, especially those who are scared, confused, feeling stuck, before they make their next step? What would you like to tell them?
I'd like them to know that they can do this. It is possible to get out of the most horrendous situation. And most women do not, thank God, are not in that position. But there are ways to get through it and to get out of it. Believe me, I have worked with some very, very difficult cases, and it's possible, but you need someone who knows the system for you. You need someone who can walk you through it and tell you this is what you have to do first, second, third. Um, Men will use, especially in abusive situations, they always use the children as a weapon. I mean, it happens in all divorces, but in abuse cases, they always tell the wife, "You leave, I'm taking the kids. I have the money, you don't. I can get a lawyer, you can't, and I'm going to get the kids. I'm going to get the kids. I'm going to get the kids." And so women, it just paralyzes them and keeps them right where they are in that situation. Um, Most of the time, these men don't even want the kids, but they use them as leverage because they know that's the most important thing to the wife and the mother. There are many, many different areas that women should have information about before they even look for the right lawyer. People come to me all the time and ask me to refer them to attorneys. And it's very hard because it's a one on one process. And what I tell them is find 3 or 4 attorneys, ask them if they'll give you a free consultation, go meet with them, sit and talk, and you have to get a feeling for which person are you going to be able to work with. Believe me, divorce attorneys can work with just about a stick, they can work with anything. But the client that needs to know they're going to be comfortable and trust what the lawyer is doing for them.
Yes, ma'am.
They really have the rest of your life in their hands.
Mm. Miss Pat, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. As I said, I'm here. I am full of information, and I would be more than happy to share it with you. Thank you for having me.
You heard Miss Patricia. If you're exploring divorce or just want a safe place to ask questions and get clarity, Pat Sokolich is here to help. Her divorce coaching offers practical guidance and emotional support without the pressure of hiring a lawyer. To learn more or even book a session, visit SokolichFamilyLaw.com and be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review if you enjoyed this first episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.